live. Let's do it.
Right.
How soon?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Waunakee is Home. Today is our 5th installation of these wonderful conversations we're having with really interesting, creative, smart, amazing people. And today is no different. I am Tanya Schmidt, and I am honored to be interviewing the Kang family today. Laura, Jay, and Grayson are waving there. This is part of an initiative through Create Waunakee, a group of people who seek to inspire, connect, and unite current and future community members in showcasing and building upon what makes Waunakee a unique place to live, work, and visit. And there are so many stories to tell of really awesome people in this village, and that's exactly what Waunakee is Home is all about. As I said, this is the 5th installment, and I want to just jump into this. Everybody has a story to tell, and we could probably do a whole day of interviews with the Kangs because of how interesting their family is. We're going to try to do it in about 30 minutes today, so I hope everybody has a cup of coffee or some other warm beverage to enjoy this chat with the Kang family. So before we jump in and hear from them, we are going to start with a fun little video. So let me share my screen here and let you all enjoy.
Oh man.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Yeah, hey, every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it. It's gonna get difficult to stand, but hold your balance. I just say whatever, cause there is no way you're around it. Everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I just love that song. What a fun, upbeat song, and especially in the situation that we're in right now and have been in since March, this seems like your family motto and just the way that you live your life. So, hello, Kang family. I would love to start by hearing from each of you about your backgrounds. So, Jay, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit to get us started here today.
Absolutely. So I'm Jay Kang, and originally from New York City, born and raised to first-generation Koreans, and moved to Madison for college. And so that's sort of like the quick story. But yeah, I grew up to a pretty traditional Korean household, and had an amazing, had an amazing childhood in New York. I grew up right in the city and was able to do a ton of fun stuff. Went to a pretty amazing high school out there, and like a lot of New Yorkers do, ended up at the UW of Wisconsin. And unlike most New Yorkers, when I came here, I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, this is amazing. You don't have to get dressed up to do laundry, and there's trees and nature and water and lakes. Never thought I would end up living in Wisconsin for as long as I did, but it's been, oh man, 20 plus years, and I'm still here, and I love it. I absolutely fell in love with Wisconsin, and I ended up meeting this amazing person who made me love Wisconsin more. And yeah, throughout the journey, I served with the Air Force for 7 years. Went to the UW, did some work downtown. My last career before the one I'm in, I worked for Red Bull as a director of sales, And currently I am the owner of Rescued Woodworks, which is a local small business based out of the industrial park in Waunakee. So that's a little bit, that's like the condensed 1-minute history of Jay.
Yeah, Jay, you mentioned something when we chatted before about the composition of your high school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So, you know, growing up in New York City, life was completely, not completely different, but it looked a lot different than it does in Waunakee or in Wisconsin. And so my high school, which was one of the top high schools in the nation, was 52% Asian at the time. It's actually, I think it's more Asian now, but 52% Asian. So I honestly thought that was the way that America looked. And growing up in New York, depending on where you live, it can and often does look like that. You know, like it wasn't odd for me to go into a McDonald's and see a menu in Korean. And so, you know, when you're young, that those are your formative years. And so you think, oh, this is the way the world looks. And so I came to Wisconsin and it was like, oh, wow, this is a different, you know, this is a different look.
A little
And
different,
so,
yeah.
yeah, you know, so that was an eye opener, but I think, yeah, it was good.
Awesome. And Laura, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I am a born and raised Wisconsinite. Is that what we call ourselves? So I grew up in central Wisconsin in a very small town called Waupaca. And in the beginning of that video, I almost got a little teary because I was like, oh, like that's, you know, that was my family's business. So my family has always been, I guess you'd call them entrepreneurs before we even called them entrepreneurs, or that word even made any sense to people, I think, because my grandfather started a business. It was a Rambler dealership. And it was in our family for 65 years before my dad eventually ended up retiring and selling the business. And talk about interestingly full circle, very recently he sold the business to someone who does like restorative antiquing kind of vintage supplies. And now that's being this garage, this dealership that was, you know, it's a dealership in a garage, has been restored into this beautiful building where they sell all these fun, cool things out of. So that you got a glimpse of that in the video, and I just thought it was super cool. I think my dad will get a kick out of it. But so I grew up in the polar opposite position of Jay. I mean, diversity, while my family, it was something prevalent in my family and we traveled a lot, we talked a lot about it. It was not, I wasn't entrenched in anything diverse in terms of cultural diversity in Waupaca. But then I came to Madison and I got my undergraduate here and my graduate here degree, and never in a million years thought I would stay. But I did. Yeah, right. And this is where our house and our family and our life is, right? So it's been a journey. So I have a master's in psychology. I practiced for what I call a hot minute. And then I transitioned into sales, and I've done a lot of different things, but I'm in biotech now I work in biotech, and I have other entrepreneurial side businesses as well, but my full-time position is in biotech, and in most days I enjoy it.
Yeah, right.
I think it's funny that Laura, you know, we both ended up in Madison or the Waunakee area, and we love it. And we have a lot of friends that don't live in Wisconsin, and they, you know, they'll often reach out to us and say, I have no idea why you're still living in Wisconsin. And then they come visit us and they're like, I totally get it. Like
now they get it, right?
Yeah,
they
like
have
we're
to
moving
come and
here.
visit,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Grayson, do you want to do a little background on your wonderful 10 years in the world?
I don't really have much. It's basically, for what I can remember, mostly school.
Yeah. I hear the adopted pups, which is something
I
talking about.
apologize for that. Someone must have just came to the front door and they're kind of going crazy, so I
They're losing their
apologize.
minds.
Yeah.
That's okay. That actually will lead into something we talk about later. So this will be a little cliffhanger and foreshadowing for folks.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
So wondering, when we talked before, Jay, you talked about food and what that was like for you growing up. And then when you started to meet some other friends, kind of what you preferred for food types, and wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
yeah, I grew up, like I said, in a very traditional Korean household. And so, Grayson actually still laughs at me because there's this concept of breakfast food, lunch food, and dinner food in American culture and in American cuisine. But in Korean cuisine, it's like, you're eating rice for breakfast, you're eating rice for lunch, you're eating rice for dinner. So like rice is like the, you could have it whenever. And so I grew up eating, I would say 95% of my food outside of what I was getting at a school cafeteria was Korean food, very traditional. My mother loved to cook. I'm very grateful for it now because she's passed on a lot of the love of Korean cuisine to me.
I'm grateful too.
Good. Everyone benefits.
But I will say, having been raised like that and having had so much Korean food, when Laura says, "Hey, I'm going to cook dinner. What do you want? What do you want me to cook?" Like I'll always go back to the meatloafs and the lasagnas, and like she's like, and people are like, "Why are you asking?" And I'm like, I never got to eat that stuff when I was growing up. Like that is like it's a luxury to me. I'm like, ground beef and ketchup, like yeah, like put it in a bread pan and cook it up because that sounds delicious.
Yeah. Oh, funny.
So for me, those are the treats. And I think it's pretty funny because Grayson now and a lot of Grayson's friends, and this is, a lot of this happened pre-COVID, but oftentimes we would be the house that a lot of the kids would be hanging out in around dinner time. And when we would ask them like, "Hey, what do you guys want to eat for dinner?"
Pizza. That's what everybody's saying. I'd be like, barbecue bow.
Yeah, so all the other kids are like pizza, whatever. But when the kids are at our house, they'll be like, we want Korean food. We want Korean beef. Korean beef or steamed buns or, And so I just think it's funny how they associate when they come to our house, like that they'll get some sort of Asian cuisine or something like that. And so, I absolutely love that. If I can expose other people to that type of food and share my love of it with Grayson, like I think it's a phenomenal thing. So I still, when someone asks me, "What do you want to eat?" I'm still going to say like lasagna and meatloaf and.
Yeah, I think though, like such an interesting part of this is, I mean, in our household, we tend to eat very more traditionally Korean food more often than we do other types of food. I mean, like we're heavy into Asian cuisine, and I just think that works for us. And it's something that we really enjoy. So, like COVID and these last few months have been kind of interesting because part of who we are is we want to invite people into our home, and we want to cook for them, and we want to have parties, and we want to do these large gatherings. And it's been an adjustment for us because that's not possible. But one of the things that we've done for as long as I can remember is something called Friendsgiving, which is very common. And for us, our Friendsgiving though wasn't traditional turkey stuffing, things like that. It was inviting friends over, and sometimes there was a charitable component to it, but we would make shabu shabu, which isn't Korean either, but it's certainly Asian.
It's a very Asian sort of the concept of hot pots. So, you boil a couple of stock pots and have them as the centerpiece of the meal. And then we provide people with the different ingredients that they want. And so they just go up and grab it, put it in the rolling stock, and then they make their own sort of
it's like a sweet noodle dish.
Yeah.
It's like
and the whole concept is, the broth starts out pretty bland in the beginning, but as everybody puts their food in and keeps cooking throughout the day and throughout the evening, the broth gets
more rich.
Richer and richer, and the food gets better and better. And so
I always love Friendsgiving because we eat and the kids barely eat anything, and then they just all go downstairs and like have Nerf gun fights.
That sounds really fun. But I love that analogy to like the community, that pot it becomes richer and richer with all the different things that are put into it.
That's exactly it.
Well, and that's it. And it's really about, and I think even if not to sound too cheesy, but really it's a little bit more than that because we're all sharing this food and creating something together. And so I find it to be really perfect for a Friendsgiving type where you're having people into your home because it's really about we're all doing it together, and the food is shared. Now, you can't really do that during COVID, unfortunately. But
Unfortunately.
yeah, when we even tried to take like a little piece of that to the people who've been coming for years and just dropped off little boxes of fun gifts at their house. And it was really more for us because we were able to like see them from a distance and chat and catch up and have our moment with our friends. So, you know, it's just those little things like that I think are pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of community, I mean, we are here talking about Waunakee is home, and I think everybody's probably wondering, how did you end up in Waunakee? What brought you here to this wonderful community?
Oh.
Do you want to answer? Yeah.
Yeah, Waunakee was, so Laura and I, we originally lived on the west side of Madison.
Mhm.
In
And
a condo.
in a
It
condo,
was
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And
Oh,
I
I have
would
a
be at
lot
the-
of memories there.
yeah, so my job required me to get to the airport multiple times a week, 3, 4, 5 times a week often. And so the drive was, you know, getting a little cumbersome. And so Laura and I, we were talking, we're like, listen, we need to move closer to the airport. What are the neighborhoods around there? And we really had no idea about Waunakee, Sun Prairie, other than it's where we go to shop, this and that.
Yeah,
So
I think we did. I mean, I think when we looked at it, we tried to really narrow it down to 3 communities that were both by the airport, but also really good school
schooling.
districts.
Mhm.
And so that was something that was important to us. So really, for us, it came to the choice between Middleton and Waunakee.
Yep.
But he
And then
drove
we,
that
we
decision.
saw this, you know, we saw the house that we currently live in, and I was like, oh man, it's right off 19 and the airport. And so we made the decision kind of, you know, based on that kind of stuff, but we're totally glad in hindsight that we moved here because it has a ton of the stuff that we were looking for. You know, there's always room to grow. Good enough is never good enough. But I think a lot of the things that we were looking for that we were missing on the west side of Madison, we can find here.
Children.
Well,
Yeah.
Children
that was
that
part
we can
of-
play with.
yeah, so I think that's actually really important. So Grayson said in the beginning, right, we lived in this condo. And when you think about living in a condo, you think like, well, shared space, shared walls, shared experiences, but it was actually the exact opposite of that. Like, while we knew our neighbors, we certainly weren't close with them. We
Well,
certainly didn't do a
We
ton.
knew the old lady.
She was
we-
Russian.
We knew her pretty
Yes,
well.
we knew her well. Yes, but
Great.
we didn't have the sense of community or connections that we have here, right? Because now Grayson is able to go outside and we know every one of our neighbors and we know their children, and it's certainly a different experience. And yes, what brought us here is the fact that Jay could get to the airport in like 7 minutes, wake out of bed, roll into the airport, and they all knew him. That's certainly what brought us here, but that's not what keeps us here.
Absolutely.
And what keeps us here is that sense of community that we have developed. It would be very hard for us to uproot our life and our friendships and go somewhere else knowing what we have here.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
have a lot of good friends here, and I only have like 2 people that I can play with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a tough time right now, but I'm so glad you have so many friends.
Mhm.
I mean, when we
And
spoke
Jay, you go ahead.
when we spoke to our realtor, we said, listen, you know, she'd say, what kind of home are you looking for? And we said, I want the home with 15 bikes in front of it.
Yeah.
That all the kids want to play at, you know, so like it has to be welcoming and you know, designed for that. And so I think we were fortunate in the fact that we were able to find a house that, you know, lended itself to that, as well as move into a neighborhood and a community that was open to that. So absolutely love it.
Jay, when we talked before, you spoke about, you know, that job that took you to the airport so often. And that took a different turn for you. And I want you to share that story. And I think it's such a great example to people of how our lives pivot, and yours pivoted even before we were in this pandemic. But if you don't mind talking a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So previous to what I'm doing currently, I was the director of sales for Red Bull in the Midwest. And so it was a career that I absolutely loved. Oftentimes the people I knew and my friends would even say, like, you don't really have a job. Like, you have something that you love to do that's fun, that actually pays you, you know? So I haven't gone to a music festival or a concert since we've left Red Bull, not because, you know, it's just hard not standing on stage at Lollapalooza and you know, like, so there was a ton of perks with the job. But one of the downfalls of it was that it had me traveling
All
a
day.
ridiculous amount, you know, so 180 to 200 days a year. I'd be away from home. And when I was, you know, when Grayson was a little younger, it was
You didn't even know where the
not so bad.
silverware drawer was.
You're right. You're right. I'm gonna,
You tell
get to-
Kristen.
and
You
so
let him know.
you'll never let me live that down.
I bet.
So, you know, it got to a point. So right around when I made the decision to transition, it got to the point where I was packing bags from hotels to fly home to grab dinner, see the family, and then fly back to the hotel. And so,
Which wasn't sustainable, right? Like
Mhm.
that's not and many people do that and they enjoy it, but from a family perspective for us, I'm sure that wasn't really something that we could
Yeah,
manage
you know,
long term.
and Laura has a very successful job that was very demanding at the time. Grayson was getting older, and there was a push for me to relocate. And so I just thought it was
We were actually at one point thinking about, sorry to interrupt, but at one point thinking about getting him an apartment in Chicago.
Mm.
And then he would have an apartment in Chicago and we would have the house here. And he would just use it as like a place to like sleep when he was either traveling and going through O'Hare or where his regional office was located in Chicago, just to have a home base there. I mean, you know, it was getting like a little desperate because we were like, well, how are we going to keep managing this?
yeah. And so we got to the point where we're thinking like, all we're doing is chasing a lifestyle and not really living our life. Like the fact that we would contemplate getting a second apartment in Chicago just for me to live in during travel and to, you know, to be able to say that I relocated to Chicago. At that point, we were just like, you know what,
It wasn't sustainable.
it wasn't the way to go.
Yeah.
And so I decided to leave the corporate world. And I had a little bit of time during the transition where I
You
decided
stayed at home.
I did, yes. You know, that I was gonna take 6 months off. And I sat down and talked to Laura. I said, hey Laura, what do you think about me taking 6 months off? And you know,
You can imagine how that went over at first.
she was
What?
great about it. She was like,
Oh, are we going to do that?
take 2 years up now. But you know, we had the discussion, and
I am supportive, but you know, there's a moment where you're like, what?
It's reality, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
but I think at the time we were both feeling it, right? So there was
Yeah.
so much travel burnout on my
Yeah.
end, and so much like
Yeah.
you're doing everything on your end,
Yeah.
that you were like, yes,
Yeah.
stay home for 6 months. And so the story that Grayson was saying right away was, I was the Disneyland dad. You know, I would fly home, and it's not like, hey, I'm going to cook dinner. I flew, you know, like I'm here for 12 hours. Let's cook dinner. It was like, I'm coming home. Let's go out to eat. Disneyland dad.
Yeah.
And so the first week of me, you know, not in the corporate world, I'm walking around the house. I have no idea what things are. And so I'm like, why is the silverware drawer here? It should be here. It doesn't make sense logistically for it to be 2 drawers away from where we're cooking and this and the spices are. And so I rearranged the whole house. And I think Laura and Grayson.
That was exciting for you, Laura.
I felt like I was on another ride.
You
I'm
know
like,
what?
what is happening? I already did this once. Why is it happening again?
I realize this now that they handled it with so much grace and they let me have that space. They let me turn the whole house upside down and rearrange it. And then after I got off that kick, I'm looking back at it now and like everything's where it was. Like, so like none of the changes I made are permanent. Like, so I've never seen them change it back. It must have like gone renegade at night and like said, all right, we got to fix that screw up. Like, this is, put this stuff back. But
I mean, but to be fair to Jay, like when we decided on the very day we decided that we accepted the offer or the house offer was accepted, he accepted a bigger position and the position he talked about. So
and from day one, I was traveling.
Literally day one. So he somehow got us moved in here in between 2 major trips all over the United States. And so, you know, it was more transient for him, right? I was here, I was experiencing, I was doing those things and making it a home in the beginning, but he wasn't able to do that because he literally moved and then the next day got on a plane and left. So, you know, I understand.
remember meeting my like best friends now only with you at the house.
Yeah, that's in the beginning. 'Cause that's how it was.
The way it
But
So things like what he just said, you know, as he was getting older,
Yeah.
I remember, oh man, that was the breaking, not the breaking point, but it was a pivotal moment for me, was when he looked at me and he asked me if I was going to be at his birthday party. He was like, are you going to be at my birthday party? And I was like, are you, like, are you kidding me? Why would I miss your birthday party? He's like, well, you're always gone. And so that was like a point of conversation. Laura and I were like, we need to sit down. He's getting older. This is having a very real impact. And so that's the silverware story that Grayson was referencing, earlier.
Yeah.
I had to try to get that in for you, buddy.
But I do know that there's another piece we foreshadowed with another question that Grayson had for you that was very important.
And so, this is at the time he was 6 years old, and perspective from a
When we moved here, I was 6.
no, when I left Red Bull. So perspective from you, he said, Dad, I think it's amazing that you're going to be able to spend so much time at home. Now can we get a dog? So he's been priming us for getting a dog for so long. We had our dog, we had a dog pass away a couple of years prior. And since then he was just constantly, wanting another dog. And so I would always say, I'm traveling too much. It's just not fair. And so like, I can tell that he's the son of 2 salespeople, because he literally he gave us the boost. It was like the positive sandwich, he was like, well, now I think it's good that you're going to be home all the time. And I love you. But now a dog. And so I couldn't say no, right? So then I'm like,
because you didn't
let's
make
do it.
the excuse. You made the wrong excuse.
Yep.
And so what did that lead to for you, Jay?
Yeah, so we we found our first dog. We wanted to rescue both of them. And so no, you don't need to bring them in.
No, we don't.
We don't need crazy in our life right now.
They're 2 rescue dogs. We love them a lot, but they still have a lot of baggage.
And so, without getting too much into our dogs, this will give you a good view of us as pet owners. So we have 2 dogs now. Our little dog that we got first, his name is Stupak. So Stupak, yep. And then our second dog is Biggie. And so we have Stupak and Biggie as our rescue dogs.
They're rappers.
Yeah. Anyway. And so when Stu came from he came from a pretty rough, abused situation. And so he needed a lot of work to get acclimated into a loving household. And so before he got to our house, I wanted to, and this is a very silly concept, but I didn't want a plastic feeder in our house. First, I was just like, I don't want one of those cheap looking plastic feeders. And I want the dog to know that he's loved and he's special and he has his space. And so we carved out a space for him in our house. And I was like, I'm going to make him a nice feeder. I had no concept of woodworking or this at the time. I didn't even know what that entailed. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go on YouTube and look up. How hard could it be? It's a piece of wood. You cut some holes in it, whatever. It wasn't easy, but I knocked it out. I probably spent a week on something that would now take me 15 minutes, right? But sat in the garage. I had nothing but time. And I made it this walnut live edge raised feeder.
It was very pretty.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I posted it on Facebook. People were like, oh, I want one. I was like, nah, I'm just doing this as a hobby. And then we rescued Biggie a couple weeks later, a month later. And I made another one and people were like, oh, I love this. And then a rescue organization reached out to me. They're like, we happen to see some of your feeders. We're doing a huge fundraiser. It was the Humane Society. They do Toto's Gala every year. And we're big supporters of it. We love their mission. And so they reached out and they said, hey, listen, we would love to have some of these to auction off. And I was like, oh, this is not what I do. I'm just transitioning. This is a hobby, but I love your mission. I'll see what I can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to enjoy doing this a little more as I understood what I was doing. And so I knocked out 5 feeders for them and they did amazingly well. And so, so well, in fact, that all the people that missed out on the bids were reaching out to the Humane Society saying, hey, how do we get these feeders?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it had to get channeled up. The request got channeled up so much that one of the directors of the Humane Society called me and said, listen, my team is fielding calls for you nonstop. Can you just make a fake phone number or a fake email address?
Okay.
So my people have something to give people,
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, fine. Yeah. Okay. So I had no idea what this would lead into.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I gave him an email address and I made a Google Voice number, and it was mind blowing to me. I was like, because some of these feeders, to me, it's hard to put a value on something that at that point, it was like, I stayed in my garage and I made this, how much could it be? And so I put a value on it. They require it when I gave it to them. So I was like, $150 seems crazy, but fine, I'll put that value on there. and they went for way more than that. I was like, this is crazy, you know? But I was thinking it was for a good cause. So that's probably why they're being so generous.
Mhm.
And then when they were reaching out to me with the fake email address I created, it was pretty much the same. They're like, no, we want this. And I was literally telling people, it'll be 18 months. You can't choose anything except tell me how tall your dog is. Because I don't know enough to give you the, yes, I can do this or not. Like, just tell me how tall you want it. And that's the only thing you can choose, and you'll get it within 18 months.
So
I was thinking people were going to say no. Like, I wouldn't say yes to that. They're like, sure, here we go. Yes.
I think the crazy part of this is, not to cut you off, but what started a business concept was that, which it's led into something that's so much more, right? So
Absolutely.
now you're making, I mean, it's been a sustainable
Furniture.
business, and furniture, and like these massive items that it's crazy to me to think about what that transition.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the story behind it. So I say that we rescued our 2 dogs, but now that I look back on it, they rescued me, right? Because they were able to take me out of the corporate world and provide me with an outlet to do something that can provide for my family and that I love doing and that keeps me home, right? So the name of my business is Rescued Woodworks. And that's kind of the story behind it. Is we rescued these 2 dogs, and in the end, they ended up rescuing us. And you know, all the lumber that I use, or vast majority of the lumber that I use, are from trees that the city cuts down that would end up in landfills.
Mhm.
We have urban arborists that will mill them up. And so a lot of the, you know, I have clients that say, hey, I used to live on Livingston Street downtown. Can you get me a tree from that? And the urban arborists will actually, because they geotag those trees to study them.
Isn't that fascinating?
That's amazing.
You know, they'll say, oh yeah, 3
Meaningful
trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so-
Laura, you also, I mean, Jay, that's just amazing. I love that entrepreneurial spirit, and just the fact that you made that decision for your family, and that your dogs rescued you. Also, Laura, you have that entrepreneurial spirit from your family, and you have a very big passion for empowering women and leading women. I love the lemonade that you have made out of the lemons of this pandemic. You want to talk about some of that lemonade that you've made?
Yeah, that's a really adept way of describing it. So, I mean, I guess for part of a big part of our moral code in our family is that we want to give back, and giving back and giving and being charitable, whether it's in our community, in the larger community of Madison or Wisconsin, is just a real big. If a family had a mission statement, that would be ours.
I will say, like, we give selfishly, right? Because we do it because it makes us feel good. Like, one of the things that we tell Grayson all the time, like, what's one of the things that we tell you all the time?
The happiest people in the world are the people that give.
Yeah, right. So the happiest people in the world are the ones that give, right? Not receive, right? So we do it selfishly. Like, we get so much joy out of it.
Yeah.
That, like, we'd be sad people if, I think, we didn't do it.
It's part of who we are, and that kind of speaks to what the last 9-10 months have been. So for we love hosting parties. I said that 1,000 times. We just really enjoy it, and it's something that fills my cup. And when I didn't have a party to plan, and I know how silly this sounds, I felt a little like, well, where am I going to spend some of my time? What am I going to do? And so one of the things, yeah, I know. And anytime I say, like, I got this idea, Jay is like, oh, because I have a lot of ideas that we make into fruition.
So that's what she says. And the bubble that I see that comes out of her head is, Jay, I need you to take care of these things so I can execute my idea. Right?
Yeah, right. So anyway, I over the last 9 months, I decided I learned a skill. I needed to keep my hands busy and my head busy, and take my mind off things.
Your hands busy.
Literally. And so I decided to create a small company, and I'm calling it's having a moment. I'm calling it Velvet and Wool, and we make chunky hand knit blankets, and I've been doing classes online, so people are able to do it virtually, and they just did a little story in Madison Magazine about it, and so it's fun. It's been really nice to do that, and then I really enjoy it. And at one point, though, I think Jay was like, what are we going to do? There are 25 blankets in this house. We need no more blankets. Like, so, I mean, I had to turn it into something. Otherwise, I would just keep making blankets for a house that I don't know what to go with.
So here's the crazy thing too, is that I don't know if you've ever had yarn shipped to your house,
It's huge.
I haven't.
but these companies, the box is the size of a moving truck and 3 rolls of yarn come out of it. And when you get 40 of these things delivered to your house, it's like kids must be driving by going, are they building a cardboard fort in front of their house? Sure.
It's a lot.
And this is during COVID time, so we're on the safer end because we do take care of grandparents.
Mhm.
So like
Well,
sanitizing
we
all
wanna
the
stay down,
boxes
yeah.
before they come in, or like we open the boxes outside and like chucking yarn in. I'm just
Yeah.
like, man, this is a full-time job. We need a conveyor belt.
It's very popular right now.
Yeah.
I love like to talk about a little bit about things like I just dropped off a big order yesterday at Simply Unique Decor downtown. So it's really cool that I could be in my hobby, my little passion project can then be in a store in Waunakee. I think it's lovely. It's really cool for me. And it's something that means a lot. And I love being able to give people something to do so that they can connect virtually and not have it be, it can kind of be sad if you're missing out on what you used to do and what you love and hanging out with your friends. And so this is just an opportunity to do that. And I am enjoying it. And then in January, I also started with a startup company called Silvassa. And this Silvassa really speaks to me. I love building teams. I love creating options. I love coaching and mentoring women. I love the business side of it. I love taking people who don't feel like they have a sense of business and helping them gain that confidence so they can do other things. It's something I found and I fell into in my life that I actually just really enjoy and I love, and it's a way I can give back. And so Silvassa is this really unique company that talks about health from the inside out, what we can do to reduce our anxiety, what we can do to reduce our stress, how can we be healthier so that if we're healthy on the inside, we'll be healthier on the outside. And it's great. We can always do things on the outside to take care of ourselves, but there are some things that need to be done. So products that help reduce stress, practices that help reduce stress, and then really cool, this opportunity to grow a business from the ground up and bring other people into that business in a way that can help others. And I don't know about you, but I know anxiety and stress, even if you hadn't experienced it on this level prior to 2020, I'm certain you have at some point. And if anyone's listening, I bet they're relating to that too, because it just has been a stressful time. And so if we're able to do something to help, I want to be part of that. And, something like 26% of women don't know how to breathe correctly. We breathe shallow just through our noses, like just up here. And that actually triggers a stress hormone in our brains and we're unable to calm down. So just our watches tell us to breathe. Yeah. We need to remember to breathe. I know, right? So, just those small little practices and switches in our lifestyle to create different habits, to habit stack. So that we become more healthy. It's really important. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. And it's like a lifestyle, right? Like we speak to that healthy lifestyle, whether it's exercise or just being mindful about what we put in our body or how we react to situations. It's just important. And it's something that I love, and it's neat and it's fun and it's been exciting.
And it's much needed right now. That's what I love is that, but both of these things are things that people need with the stress that they're experiencing with the pandemic. And it's that another way that you are all giving back, which is amazing. Okay, we have come to the really exciting part where Grayson is going to take over the interview and ask 5 rapid fire questions to his parents. Now, these are rapid fire, so you guys are just giving 1-word answers, no explanation.
Yeah.
And then we will close things down. So Grayson, do you think you're ready?
Yes.
All right, take it away.
Okay. What is your most memorable job you've ever had, Mom?
Okay. My most memorable job that I've ever had was working at Ding's Dock in Wapaka and getting people on boats to have them take a canoe trip. I bet you never thought I said
That was
that.
like 46 words plus commercial.
Sorry.
Rebecca, I had to explain a little bit. Okay.
Quick fire. Come on, you.
Video store.
The video store. What is your favorite food? Dad.
Korean ribs.
Yours?
Sushi and champagne.
Good one, good one.
I'm definitely coming to your house for dinner.
What is a simple joy in your life?
A simple joy in my life.
Yep.
You.
You.
I mean, that's like cheating, right? Like, what's another simple joy in your life?
What's another simple joy?
Surfing.
Oh yeah, surfing's fun. Surfing's fun.
Good one.
What is your favorite thing about our community, Mom?
The friendships that we've created and the relationships that we have with others. 100%.
Dad.
Growth. Good enough is never good enough. Always wanting to improve.
Mhm.
Okay. What is the motto you live by?
Oh, be kind, do more, give back.
Do what matters and give give selfishly.
I didn't know that was a motto.
We just made it up.
Yeah, we made it up.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in
Okay.
quotations and underneath it, put
Mom.
J Kang.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Grayson, to you especially for helping me do this interview, and to you, Laura and Jay, for sharing just a very small portion of your family's life and just sort of what you stand for. It was great to get to know you. There's so many more things that we can learn about you. Maybe we can even provide some links to some of the really great things that you talked about with your businesses in the page. I also want to thank our youth volunteer, Colton Duckin.
Colton,
He
you made the video.
Yeah.
It's so
did
good.
the video, and
It
he's
was
an eighth
amazing.
grader. So how amazing is that? All of the volunteers who've worked with Waunakee is Home. Like I said, this is our 5th edition. So we've got 5 of these under our belt, and we have so many more to bring to you. And then also just a thank you to the Create Waunakee committee for bringing all of these opportunities to us and these stories for people to tell. Also, if anybody wants to be a guest interviewer, please let us know. You can contact the Create Waunakee page through their Facebook page. If you have not liked the Create Waunakee page, please go ahead and do that, just so you can stay up to date on all the things that are happening in our community. We do videos on how to cook things. Maybe we'll do a cooking video soon with you all. Maybe we'll get your hand blanket making on there. There's so many opportunities. I think Guilty Cafe is doing a cookie making one coming up, cookie decorating. So really a lot to look forward to. Again, I just thank you so much, Kangs, for sharing your family with us. And I hope everybody has a fabulous rest of your weekend. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Bye.
guys.